Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the Eduard Profipack Spitfire Mk.V Early in 1/72nd scale. So join me as I get stuck inside this box and see what this kit is like. Tiny little bit of backstory about this kit. Initially, I wasn't fussed about this. I just thought, oh, another Spitfire. We don't really need another Spitfire. I'm not really fussed. I've built Mk.Vs before. I'm actually in the process of going through various other Mk.Vs from different brands like Revell. I think I've got a Smur one. I've done an Airfix one. So Mk.Vs and Cs and things like that in 1/72nd scale, I'm already kind of doing. I've got enough. I bought this purely to push shipping up on another order so that it would get free shipping and not have to pay for it. So just spend an extra couple of quid and I got a kit rather than having to pay for shipping. Having had a look inside this box, I'm actually genuinely excited to have a go at this kit. So let's have a look inside the box, see what we've got. We've got this rather cool image on the front, Profipack at the top. It tells us that this is like the more deluxe version of the kit, so you get extra stuff inside the box. On the thin edge, we have an item code of 70205. We've got contact details and a copyright date of 2025. Copyright dates aren't always tooling dates, but in this case, it may well be. We have some extra information. It says that we've got parts for 1 kit, decals for 6 options, Photoetch parts, die cut masks. It's quite a comprehensive model kit. The other edge has all of our different marking schemes, and you can see there's loads of different early Mk.Vbs, all in either the dark earth and dark green or the grey and green camouflage paint scheme. So we've got 3 of each. And yeah, the thin edges just have the same information and the back doesn't have anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to get inside the box and see what we actually have. So yeah, well, I had a look at this as soon as it came through the door, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, so it's a Spitfire. Spitfires are okay. And then I opened it up and I was like, wow, this is actually like pretty incredible. So I already have an idea of what to look at in this kit. Instructions then. We have a glossy booklet printed in full colour. We've got information about the actual Spitfire. Lots of information actually. It's quite like a whole page. Then we come on to our key for symbols. We have a sprue map which tells us which bits we don't need. We have a mask included and we have Photoetch. There are I think there's like weekend editions of kits as well, which basically just come with the kit, decals and instructions. You don't get all the options and they're a little bit cheaper, but actually this is quite good value and I'll talk about that a bit later on. Paint colour callouts are down here, and then that follows through as you get into the assembly stages. So we start off by assembling our internal cockpit area, and you can see that not only do we have a mix of plastic components, but there's also Photoetch components which need to be installed as well. The cockpit looks to be fairly comprehensive. Despite the fact that this is 1/72nd scale, out of the box you've got a lot of different details. Paint colour callouts are also mentioned to help make it easier. Photoetch elements such as the seat belts. There's a lot going on. Assemble up your internal cockpit components, add your seat belts together, thread them through, do your control panel, build up our cockpit tub. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Insert that into our actual fuselage here. There's a few more details and things. And then you can see actually that the leading edge of the wing root here is a separate part, which probably helps with getting gaps and things not like existing, not having to use filler. I'd be very surprised if I have to use filler on this kit. Once you've done all of these steps, so the cockpit's quite involved. Once you've done all of these steps, we move on to the wing and the landing gear bay areas. There are a couple of holes that we need to open up, I presume for some more details, which we'll see shortly. We add our landing gear bay components, then the upper wings. We do have our little like machine gun representations for the outboard positions, and then we come to add our fuselage, our wings and our tail surfaces together. At this point you can see we've got separate wing tips. Eduard is of the habit of designing other sort of features or other variants of the aircraft into their kits. So in this particular case you see we need these ones, but there would be other ones for other versions. I presume this also can be used for like a later Mk.V variant, and it could have had clip wings as an example. Ailerons go on. Turn over the page. We add our lower side of our nose, the air intakes and radiators, and then we have the smaller components here, which is what I believe we opened up our holes in the lower side for earlier. There are quite a few little details as well, which you don't typically see in 1/72, like the other kits I've done, the Mk.Vs I've done. They don't have these sort of internal parts of our radiators. And when we get to this point, the radiator flap can actually be positioned in a more open or closed orientation if you would prefer. Wheels come in a number of parts. They don't appear to have a flattened edge to simulate weight going through the aircraft. Not a huge deal, but other kits in this scale have featured that. We have the wheels being added. There is a clear part for a navigation light or something, and then the pitot tube and the gun barrels, or actually the cannon barrels, the 20mm cannons which were in each wing for the Mk.V. It doesn't appear that there is a raised landing gear option, but I imagine if you were careful and modified these parts you could display it raised, but it's not designed into the model from what I can see. At this point we are adding the tail wheel, and then we come to our cockpit windscreen. So it would seem that we do have the option of installing either a Photoetch rear view mirror or a plastic one if you'd prefer, and then we come on to the propeller and spinner. Depending on the version you're doing, make sure you select the correct parts. It does tell you which marking you want to use, because the spinner is slightly different. The prop may have a slightly different profile as well. Yeah, they're different prop components, so there's slightly different profiles depending on which prop they used. We do have a diagram here showing how the aircraft should look on its wheels and the sort of landing legs distance that they are apart. Turn over the page, we come on to our other parts of our cockpit canopy. You can see there's more Photoetch to be installed if you want to include it. And then at this point we start bringing those elements together. So we have the option to have the pilot's door open so we can climb in and out. The canopy can be open or it can be closed depending on your preference. Install your prop at the end. You don't need to add it earlier on in the build. And engine exhausts can be attached. We do also have some rigging information here. I believe these wires were for like IFF, identify friend or foe, instruments, and then we also have our main aerial mast as well. This is a indication of the mask sheet which is included. So in some areas we're going to need to use some liquid mask, but it does indicate which bits from the sheet we need to put on the parts. The drawing is a little wavy, but that's purely like a copywriting kind of thing. The actual ones aren't wavy. This is just to stop people from scanning these into a computer and then cutting them out themselves. A little bit of protection there, because obviously Eduard has spent money on the masks. They want people to use their actual masks rather than making copies of them. Then we come on to our painting instructions, which are in full color, which is fantastic to see. I do find it interesting actually that these ones don't have aerial wires. So I do know that there were some aerials which were just contained within the mast and there were no wires that went to the tail. And I wonder if that is the case with all of these, because they have drawn on the IFF ones, but not this one. So I think that may well be the case. The first paint scheme is in earth and brown and sky on the bottom and is from Biggin Hill. The next one, scheme B, is RAF Hornchurch, and it's very similar, but you can see that actually there's a little bit of pen being applied onto this bit here. Someone has scribbled out, not me, I haven't done that, someone has scribbled out, I presume it's the kill count or the kill markers. They would have used a certain symbol to indicate the kills, which I'm sure we'll see on the decal sheet, but in this case they've censored it slightly. We have another aircraft here from 1941 at Biggin Hill, which is very similar. These three are all quite similar. The only real differences, I think, are in the shape of the spinner. I think this one has a different shaped spinner compared to this one as an example. But they are, for the most part, quite similar, just different registration codes based on the individual aircraft type. Not sure which one I would want to do. Turn over the page and then we come into the dark grey, dark green and the lighter grey on the lower surface. 1942 in Biggin Hill. This one's a Canadian one by the looks of it. This one is RAF Kenley in 1942, and then this one over the page is Hornchurch in 1941-1942. And again, these are all quite similar. Just again depends on which version you wanted to do. What I do find interesting is that when we get into the green and grey schemes, you'll notice that the leading edges of the wings start to have the yellow warning flash applied, whereas the sort of more temperate or Battle of Britain kind of colours, they don't actually have that. I don't know which one I would be tempted to do, but actually, like, I think doing it, this is an early Mark V variant, isn't it? So why not do it in the earlier earth and green shades? Because that'll be interesting, because a lot of people go, oh, I didn't know Mark V's were painted in that colour. So I think that would be a fun choice. But then again, you know, we've got 6 to pick from, and I'm sure I will pick one of them. So I like that. Lots of good information. There are stencils included, and the stencils are pretty much the same for every single aircraft, apart from obviously the propellers. So check which propeller you're using, and they are all laid out here, because otherwise it would become too messy on the actual instructions. And then the final page is not needed, so there's just a bit of notes there. So yeah, instructions, fairly comprehensive, fairly easy to follow, pretty decent. And that should bring us onto the decals. So I've not built an Eduard kit for a while, and I am of the impression that Eduard, I don't know if it was necessarily intentional, but they have a decals which the film is technically removable. I've not tried that, I've not experienced it myself, but it will be interesting to see if this is the kind of thing that I could try out on this particular build. So this first one here, you can see we've got copyright dated 2025. This has all of our stencils. I would imagine that this is a generic stencil sheet, and you can see down here it does say Spitfire Mk.I to 5. So this will be something that they just generally create and package up with each of their boxings. The printing is pretty nice. It looks okay. Perhaps the decal film is a little bit like large around the outside of the transfers, but I don't think that should be a problem, especially if this is the kind of decal where the transfer film can be removed. I think using white spirit after application. But yeah, they look okay. I can't anticipate there being any problems applying those to the kit. And then we come to the ones for the actual paint schemes. So remove the paper. Again, copyright 2025 down the bottom, Spitfire Mk.V Early, so we have the right set. And here we have all of the different registration codes and all of the different bits and pieces for our different paint schemes. I believe this one here may be the one on that image which was scribbled out, but I can't actually make out what the symbols are on there. The printing is okay, but it's not necessarily as refined as I've seen from other manufacturers. It's not bad. There is a slight weird texture to the surface of the transfers. They don't feel massively thick, and the printing is okay, but perhaps the colours are not as saturated as they perhaps could be. Other brands tend to have them a little bit more vibrant, perhaps is the word I might be looking for. These look a little washed out, but I think they'll be usable. I don't think I'll have any problem with them. I have noticed that we obviously get our roundels here, and if my memory serves, they all use the same ones. So ultimately, you're only going to get one kit out of this. Unlike some of the other kits I've had, where you almost get loads of different decals, and if you got some overtrees, for example, so they sell spare sprues, you could almost build another one as well if you wanted to. But in this case, you'd have to get more roundels. You get all of your registrations, but you don't get enough roundels to do another one if you had spare sprues. So yeah. Not terrible. Obviously, I only bought this to build the one kit, but perhaps just a result of the fact that all of them share the same roundels. But yeah, decals look okay. Canopy mask as well. So Eduard makes canopy masks not only for their own kits, but also for other kits, and they're usually to a pretty good quality. They come on the yellow tape. Yellow tape is pretty decent. It's one of the best ones to have. Hopefully the camera will pick up the fact that there is masking on there. So these are either die cut or like using a machine, a silhouette cutter, and they usually are pretty spot on. You just stick them off, peel them onto the relevant part. Any areas which don't fully cover, you can use your own tape or a bit of liquid mask. But yeah, masks included in the kit are a great way to go, because that means I don't have to get anything extra. And speaking of getting things extra, also we have some Photoetch. So in here we got, I think it's steel, I think it's stainless steel, because it has a more of a silvery colour to it, and you can see that they're actually pre-printed, We have our control panels, and we have seat belts and bits of the armor plating, which have all come out really nicely. Nothing on the back, but yeah, this side is printed in color, so that's pretty good. Of course, if you wanted to use the plastic components rather than using the metal ones, you could, and usually the weekend editions don't come with the masks and the Photoetch. So if you didn't like Photoetch and you didn't want to use it, and you didn't want to spend the extra money, you could always get a weekend edition. Let us take a look at the plastic parts. So as I like to begin with the clear parts, we'll start there. Comes in one bag, and as I mentioned, Eduard liked to design in lots of options into their kits, so this will be seen like this does say up here Spitfire 1, 2 and 5, so there's loads of options effectively designed into this kit. So I will have to go and check which one I need, but actually if you look, we've got early like flat canopy, we've got ballooned canopy. This one has a slightly different shape to it, it's a little bit narrower without the bulges on the side. We have open options over here. We've got our front windscreens. There are reflector gun sights, little clear parts for our lights as well. So there's loads of options that Eduard have designed into this. There's even clipped wingtips here. So if you wanted to get some overtrees and do your own kit, you effectively could. You could make like a clipped wing Mark 5. I reckon you could make an early Mark 1. There's loads of choices depending on which sprues you've got and which parts you've got on there. Plastic parts, though, look really good. The plastic is nice and clear. Like, there's no flash that I can see. If there is any flash, it'll be like an absolute like hint. It'll be just like so minimal, but I can't see any. The parts are like crystal clear. You can see through them really nicely. Maybe on this one here, there's an ever so slight blemish, but that's like nothing really. You even have molded on the side of the like there's like I don't know what it is on the side of the canopy, but there's like this little window which is present on that as well. Not every company, I think you can see it on that one there, not every company designs that into it, so they obviously have, which is pretty nice little touch. Clear parts, very nice. I think you can start to see why I'm excited about this kit, bearing in mind that I bought this just to add on shipping, so I didn't have to pay for shipping. Since I've had a look inside the bag, I am very impressed and I'm very excited to give this one a go. So the main plastic sprues, we have 1, 2, 3. 3 plastic sprues in a bluey grey kind of colour. We'll start here. This is sprue G. So obviously there are other sprues out there. This has got a bit of stringing left over from the moulding process, but that's not a problem. And straight off the bat, and I hope you'll notice it, I'm just going to move these out of the way. Look at the fine detail on the surface of this kit. We have lots of little recessed panel lines and rivets, which you don't normally see in 1/72 scale from most manufacturers. So that is very nicely reproduced. The upper wing surfaces are kind of the same. There is a slight scuff over here on this one, but with a bit of primer, I don't even think you're going to be able to notice it. But the fine level of detail is really insane. This is such a nice looking little model. Let's just get rid of that bit of stringing there. Let's get that out of the way. And yeah, we have our fuselage halves, and the rivets are both recessed and raised, depending, I suppose, on what it would have been on the real aircraft. I imagine most of it would have been flush riveted, but in some areas not so flush. And it's just so impressive, the amount of detail they've managed to squeeze into such a small kit. Flipping over, you can see that we also have a little bit of cockpit detail, and there is like a moulding around the I don't know what they would have put in there, but it's a panel, isn't it? I know on some aircraft those are for photo reconnaissance, so I wonder if there's going to be a photo reconnaissance version of this kit out at some point. You have to cut that bit out. That'll be interesting. Internally, inside of these wing halves, you can see there is a little bit of detail for the landing gear bays, and ejector pins are, well, there are some, but they're on non-visible surfaces, which are good. You're not going to have to deal with any ejector pins to clean up. Perhaps the sprue gates are a little bit chunky, but I think they've done their best to try and make them easy to remove and clean up. There is an ever so slight hint of flash in a few places. Just here on the tip of the nose as an example, there is a little bit of flash there, but it's so minimal. That's a very nice looking model there. Next sprue then, this is sprue N, and we have loads of bits and pieces. We've got our different spinners, we've got different propellers, we've got radiator components, air intakes, landing gear, legs, or those are the doors. The legs will be here somewhere, I'm sure. We have different rudder types depending on the version. We have wingtips, elevators and tail surfaces. There's slipper tanks. So we don't need slipper tanks, but obviously this has been designed into the kit, so there is other versions that can be done. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 different propeller types, 1, 2, 3 different spinner types, wheels, hubs. There's our legs, they're underneath my hand, tail wheel, and ailerons and things. It's just lots of options, isn't there? So I'm not going to need all of these parts, but you know, there is choice in there. You could get your overtrees and you could get these sprues and build any kind of version that you wanted to based on any transfers or marking schemes that you wanted to do. Very nice. Again, the level of detail is very impressive, and there is like nothing really in the way of flash that I can see. Like even the grill details on there are very nice, and the wingtips again, the same level of detail, and the tail surfaces. It's just such a nice looking kit. That then brings us on to the third sprue, the third and final sprue. This is sprue M. And again, we've got another set of spinners, or at least one spinner. We've got a prop, we've got half a prop, which I presume is for a two-bladed propeller. There's the other half down there. So yeah, two-bladed propellers exist, so you can do early versions if you wanted to. We've got 3 different kinds of seat for our pilot. No pilot is included though, not seen a pilot. So you'd have to source one if you wanted one. We've got air intakes and bits and pieces on the sort of chin. So again, there's different options that they've designed into it. I'm pretty sure we'd need that one. We have our sides of our cockpit walls. Again, different options once more. There are loads of small details. It looks like we've got spares as well if you needed them. Like number 1 as an example, I think we only need 4, but we've got loads of them. But I presume actually there might be a Mark 1 version, so there'll be different wings out there to do a Mark 1. We have engine exhaust. We've got loads of different choices of engine exhausts, which are really decently molded. Although actually these ones, 65 and 66, they do seem to have sink marks in them. That would be the first bit of problem with the tooling that I've seen. I don't think we need those. I hope we don't need those, because it would be disappointing if the ones we did needed were the ones with the sink marks. Let's just double check. We need to use, we do actually. We need 63, 64, or 65 and 66. So we need 63, 64, or 65 and 66. Of course, I think that these are sink marks. Oh, there's sink marks on that side as well. Right. I don't know. I don't think that they were historically accurate. I don't know. We'd have to look at pictures, but I don't think that these like sink marks that are on the inside here would have been accurate to the actual engine exhausts. I can't imagine why they would be. But actually they might be on the lower surface. So if they're on the lower surface, then they would be hidden, and you might not need to get a spare, but I don't know, it might be, if you think that's a sink mark, contacting Eduard and asking them for a spare, because I don't think I've ever seen that before, and they don't seem consistent either on the different panels. Like on this one there's 3, that one's only got 2. So yeah, I would, if that was you and you weren't happy with that, contact Eduard and ask them if it's a sink mark and if they could send you a spare, because I'm not sure that's meant to be there. I suppose that's the only like disappointing bit with this kit. Everything else just looks beautifully molded. I think I'll probably just use them and add a tiny dot of filler. That might be a solution. Right, so what else did we have? We've got like control columns, smaller like gas tanks and things. There's just lots of little details and stuff. So yeah, for the most part, actually very impressive. Level of detail is incredible. like if you didn't want to use the Photoetch, you see we've got our own control panels here on here, which we wouldn't need to use the Photoetch if you're not a massive fan of that. So yeah, they have thought about a lot of stuff. Let's wrap it up. We had 1, 2, 3 bluey grey plastic sprues. The plastic is reasonably dense, quite smooth, maybe an ever so slight feeling of mold release, but generally okay. We had 1 clear sprue, which is molded to a lovely quality, nice and clear. The level of detail that I've seen is very impressive, but perhaps those engine exhausts might have a small sink mark which might need fixing, or possibly a replacement part if my assessment of it being slightly damaged is correct. We had 1 sheet of Photoetch parts which are printed in colour, which are very nice. We had 1 mask sheet, again looks to be cut to a nice quality, so that's really nice to have. A sheet of generic stencils, and also decals for every single scheme, perhaps not printed quite as vibrantly as other companies could do, but still look to be fairly, acceptable. But you only get enough roundels to do 1 version, but you've only got 1 kit, so that's not a problem. Instructions come in this lovely glossy booklet and are very comprehensive and printed in full colour, which is fantastic. And all of that came contained within this box, which I quite like. I think it looks pretty cool, seeing this aircraft in combat with a Messerschmitt Bf 109. So I know throughout this we saw copyright date of 2025, and I actually think that's when this kit was originally tooled and released. So 2025, last year. It's primarily pretty much up to the modern standards that we expect. It has an impressive level of detail. It has lots of variety of parts. The clear parts are lovely. My only concern are those sink marks on the engine exhaust, which I think might be rectifiable. I think for me, I'll probably just glue them in a way that you can't see them and move on with my life. But it does look to be a very impressive kit, which is why I'm quite excited about it. There's so much choice in here. Photoetch, canopy masks, 6 different marking schemes to choose from. And this did go a little bit under my radar, although it was released last year. I didn't really know that it had come out, so actually having picked it up, I'm very impressed. Not only am I impressed with the kit itself, but I'm also impressed with how much it cost. So on the Eduard website, as I was making this video, they actually had it on sale, which is kind of crazy. So in GBP, it was retailing for £10.51 in that sale, which is absolutely insane value when you consider what we've seen inside of the box. The recommended retail price in GBP was about £15.94, so let's call it £16. I think I actually paid £15 on the dot for it, and for 15 quid, I think the level of detail we've seen, the number of options, the number of parts, the quality overall of the product, the included accessories, the number of marking schemes, like 15 quid, that's really impressive. This probably is one of, if not the best, Spitfire Mk.V on the market at the moment. Especially when I compare it to the other Spitfire Mk.Vs that I've done in this scale from other manufacturers recently. This one undoubtedly has an edge in quality. So yeah, I'm pretty excited to crack on with this one as soon as I can, and I haven't quite picked which scheme I want to do, but I think it will be one of the earlier Battle of Britain kind of style ones, because it'll be interesting to do it in that scheme with the aircraft with its cannons, and people go, oh, I didn't know that they had cannon armed aircraft in that kind of paint scheme. But yeah, let me know, what do you think of this kit in the comments below, and if my assessment of this kit was fair. Don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to join the Model Club like these guys on screen and get exclusive access to early videos and other perks, check out the links in the description. Massive thanks to these Model Club members for helping me to create consistent content. There are other ways to help support the channel if you'd prefer, but the best way to support the channel for free is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.